acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, waters and communities across Australia and pay our respect to elders past and present and to the emerging future young First Nation leaders.
It is our privilege to introduce to you Envirotech's First Nations Cultural Ambassador, Paul Newman. Hello, Paul.
Hello, everyone. For thousands of years, Australia's First Nations people have been caring for their traditional country and its rich cultural and economic resources. The traditional caring for country cultural obligations are underpinned by age-old customary law, knowledge and practices, and associated spiritual beliefs and living connections with country through kinship ties, stories and ceremonies. For First Nations people, the concept of country includes cultural beliefs that all things, including the people, plants, animals, water, the environment, the sun and stars, are all interconnected to one another. Today, as First Nations people around Australia continue the rich legacy of caring for their traditional country, there are also opportunities for us to contribute to caring for country efforts, especially given the current state of our polluted world environment affecting the health of people and the environment. So if you would like to learn some practical skills and knowledge about caring for country, particularly our oceans and the surrounding environment, then the Envirotech Certificate 3 in Marine Habitat Conservation and Restoration may just be the course for you.
Thank you, Paul. Hi, my name is Paula. I'd like to welcome you today. I'm the Assistant General Manager here at Envirotech.
Good afternoon. My name is Simon Shaw. I am the Director of Business Development and Sustainability, and I'm based at the Byron Bay campus.
Simon, you've been with Envirotech for a few months now.
Mm-hmm.
How about we start with you? What's your background?
My background is in design and planning and construction, Paula. I came from a design background. One of the projects I worked on initially was one of the first eco resorts in Australia, which was on Fraser Island, Kingfisher Bay. I then worked on some projects around the Green Olympic Games in Sydney before I was recruited to go to Abu Dhabi to work on the Zero Carbon City R&D program.
Wow, some exciting programs.
It is. And last year, during COVID, I was working on the Red Sea development program, and now I find myself as a part of the leadership team here at Envirotech Education, and I'm very excited to be a part of this initiative.
Oh, welcome, Simon. It's really great to have you here. Thank you so much. Given that you mentioned Abu Dhabi, I'd like to segue to the fact that our CEO, our amazing CEO and director, is actually in Abu Dhabi at the moment.
Yes, she is, and I'm delighted to introduce to you Shelley Bengiat, our CEO from Abu Dhabi.
Thank you for joining us for this strategic webinar and taking part in the Technical, Environmental, Vocational Education Training Reform. My name is Shelley Bengiat. I'm an Australian, Israeli, Colombian citizen, the founder and CEO of the Envirotech International Group. I respectfully acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land here present today and which will hear our engagement opportunities for their communities. I pay my respect to past, present and emerging leaders of these communities. The purpose of this webinar is to engage you in supporting the listing of environmental management, sustainability, marine and land conservation and restoration as critical priority vocational occupations, and leading a long-awaited environmental reform in the vocational education and training VET sector. Australia can be the first country to lead an environmental vocational reform, internationally benchmarking its vocational education standards and diversifying education export partnership opportunities. I am now proudly talking to you from Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates. I have been here in the last 3 months leading negotiations for the promising holistic vocational marine and environmental reform as part of new economic sustainable diversification in the Middle East in times of peace. In the UAE, similarly to many other countries, the vocational education and training sector is substantially less developed than the Australian extensive framework. The Australian VET sector is used as a benchmark internationally, and we have seen the success of this outreach in some of the countries we work in, such as the Philippines, and in the UAE with the establishment of the Maritime VET framework. This means that Australia VET reform can lead international education transformation in funding strategic schemes and occupation prioritization, and the Australian industries are a big part of leading such a national and international transformation. Envirotech team is proud to be the Australian IP owners of the first vocational marine protection accreditation worldwide, and we have called you to join this webinar to discuss the next strategic steps that will result in sustainable industries emerging as leaders, converting challenges to opportunities. The Marine Protection VET Frameworks was accredited in Australia in 2018, the cumulative of 3 years of educational research, development, international collaboration, and extensive industry consultation in Australia and offshore. We work with offshore coastal communities who protect prestigious environmental ecosystems in the Philippines, Honduras, and especially from Israel. You will soon hear Professor Nadav Sesar from Israel, that is a marine pioneer in the VET Marine accreditation. He will speak in this webinar about the blue economy and international economic extensive opportunities that can lead from this reform. When these courses were developed, we upheld the Indigenous people of Australia at the forefront of this reform with respect, as we acknowledge their values of sustainability and environmental management as true sustainable practices. The marine protection accreditations were developed and designed to support Indigenous leader communities to help us change the marine environmental tide. I thank the Indigenous communities for keeping your identity and environmental values, and we endeavor to incorporate these values to our accreditation frameworks as permitted. We are so grateful and humbled from being selected as the last Queensland winners and Australians finalists for the Premier Export Award for Sustainability. And our marine student, Susie James, winning the VET Student of the Year for Gold Coast for her contribution to the marine environment. Thank you, Susie. We are committed to the MOU signed on 2nd February 2021 with the Abu Dhabi ports in joint venture with the Maritime Academy to deliver in Abu Dhabi the marine, environmental and technical vocational education reform connecting maritime and marine life and converting challenges to opportunities in generating blue carbon credits and rehabilitating marine sites. We've designed this webinar to bring to you a strategic approach on how we can lead the national and international environmental VET reform and to demonstrate our commitment, vision, mission, and above all, passion to export the Australian education VET frameworks in environmental management, sustainability, marine habitat conservation, restoration, and producing innovation to Australia. We ended last year with a strategic submission to the Queensland Government to declare marine habitat conservation and restoration as critical priority occupations, and by doing so, declaring similar funded opportunities of apprenticeships and traineeships for marine protection as exist for other trades, learning by doing. Having ended last year with a submission to the Queensland Government, prepare us to continue with the same submissions to each of the Australian states to submit that marine protection, land, environmental management, and sustainability are vocational critical priority occupations. The VET reform is a mechanism to create practical employment pathways to empower youth in coastal communities and islanders to become environmental leaders and to support natural assets at the same time, especially the marine environment, such as our own Australian natural wonder that Queenslanders are custodian of, the Great Barrier Reef. The marine habitats are life support systems for nature and humans that are under great pressure. However, we can still turn the tide around if we act now and if we act strategically. As Australians, we can lead these environmental VET reforms by industries, high schools, and united communities supporting that reform, providing letters of support, which we will request at the end of this webinar, and we will distribute by email the relevant templates. Later in the webinar, Carmel Guy, a VET consultant, will explain the financial incentives in Australia from identifying the obvious need of listing environmental protection as critical priority occupations for students, employers, and RTOs, and how this works in each state. Let us start this strategic leadership by being the change we want to see in the world and by taking responsibility to the environmental warnings we have entered with this second decade of the second millennium, with droughts, fires, floods, bleaching events, and COVID-19. We will build bridges from high schools to universities and jobs with hands-on learning by doing. Thank you so much.
is certainly inspiring.
She has an infectious smile.
She really does, and an infectious enthusiasm. The environmental vet reform is a exciting, inspiring reform that we invite all of you to join in as we progress throughout this webinar to let you know more details.
I would just like to say a special thank you to some of our partners before we move to our next guest, especially David Hackett at TIQ for their trust and support with the IET partnerships and the Go Global program, which made it possible to export the program into Abu Dhabi. Also Shannon at Study Queensland, and the Honourable Sterling Hinchcliffe from the Department of Innovation, Sport and Tourism is making this all possible for us to embark on this environmental vet reform.
Yes, it is. And part of our working towards this was a trip that we made to North Queensland to discuss this with our Indigenous and our industry and our schools. And on our trip, we met with Cassie, who is one of our team members, a trainer and assessor.
So folks, without further ado, I would like to introduce you to Cassandra Grover. She is a trainer and assessor, as Paula said.
Welcome. My name is Cassie Grover and I'm a secondary science and marine studies teacher and vet trainer and assessor. I also currently contract to organisations including Envirotech Education as a marine advisor and course validator. The job market for graduates of tertiary marine is growing larger than the supply of graduates. Marine requirements for organised Indigenous ranges, skill development in marine practices are really not available. Marine environmental conservation initiatives and community engagement are growing fast, and it's a lot faster than the skill development of our career positions. Envirotech Education aims to clear a pathway to attract workers and develop their skills with set streams for beginners to seasoned professionals, outside of tertiary requirements to meet the industry and employer demands. Working within this industry, I have great experience with vet students looking for these opportunities and with Indigenous ranges up here in the Cape that are looking for qualified people to employ. Prime Minister Scott Morrison reminded Australia of his commitment to vocational education and training reform at the National Press Club back in January 2019. He's by saying skills reform will be a priority of COAG discussions in March and beyond. He highlighted the government's $50 million commitment to TAFE revitalisation, the reform of Australian Skills Quality Authority, ASQA, and how the government will make it easier for many vet students to access courses by increasing the size of the loans available. But currently, in the priority skills list, there are no skills identified as a priority relating to marine conservation, sustainability and environmental management. While it's important to look at skills across the economy, the blue economy, as distinct from focusing solely on vet sector delivery, the vet sector delivery is driven by RTO viability and not industry need or productivity. A unification or ecosystem for training and career pathways is sorely needed. For example, the Australian Maritime College delivers marine vet certification for maritime operations and shipboard safety skills. Marine skills and environmental conservation focus cannot be compared with a training package for any other industry. Current government research and development projects are underway to improve long-term skill outcomes for Indigenous participants in the Australian workforce and the vet system. The aim is to uncover future projects that could expand productivity, employment, economic development opportunities, open new and emerging markets, improve training and job outcomes and update industry skills in negotiations. This is a partnership with Indigenous business and community organisations that is sorely lacking in the marine industry. Our First Nations communities are dedicated to care for land and sea country. They are dedicated to provide jobs and engage future generations. They are the custodians of the land and sea we engage with. Indigenous land and sea ranges groups work to conserve Australia's important ecosystems. and cultural heritage on country, and to deliver negotiated work plans that reflect traditional owner, local community and government priorities. Their activities include a wide range of conservation services, including cultural burns, feral animal and pest control, soil conservation, debris collection, documentation and removal, cultural heritage site protection and biodiversity monitoring. Community engagement activities that include junior ranger programs, support for disaster recovery and local community events. Traditional owners employed as Indigenous land and sea rangers deliver so many conservation services that successfully combine traditional knowledge of country and Western science. Envirotech Education and Blue Planet Marine are striving to introduce vet marine reform in Australia to provide capable applicants in the marine career arena and involve communities in the conservation and sustainable practices for their area. We are all in this together with a focus that reflects the international connections and impacts of an ecosystem we all live and work in. From Australia to Israel, the Philippines and the AEU, Envirotech Education has begun delivering the ASQA Certified Marine Certificate 2 and 3 in conservation and restoration.
Cassie is certainly an inspiration, and visiting with her and seeing her expertise and her interaction with students was certainly very overwhelming. I was particularly excited because we got to meet Shaylee, who is one of our pilot students working out of Endeavour College, and she was amazing.
I was blown away by the enthusiasm of these young people, and so much of the coursework is based around the prac component, and Shaylee explained to us the project she's doing, which is in rubbish collection and removal, and I think she said it was 1.5 tonnes, didn't she?
I think she said they already had, and so she had a goal to go even further. So part of the certificate course is that you actually have to engage in particular projects. And so as part of her project assessment, she presented to the LMAC, the industry, and at the end of that meeting, which we were privileged to be at, she actually had all the resources that she needed. She had the people who'd volunteered boats, who were going to organise the food, the transportation. So it's wonderful, like only in grade 11, and she's inspired so many people already.
I think the thing that also struck me, Paula, was this interconnectedness between the maritime and the marine component and the land-based environmental and sustainability component.
Certainly.
They're not separate. I mean, the rubbish was a very good example of like something that may occur on land that has an impact in our oceans.
Yes.
And the two really go hand in hand.
Absolutely. You can't have environmental sustainability without marine restoration and conservation. They do definitely marry.
So a part of what we're doing is environmental vet reform in a very holistic and connected way. And why don't you introduce our next presenter?
Yes, we'd like to introduce you to Roberta. Roberta is one of our trainers in environmental management and sustainability. Let's see what Roberta has to say.
Hello, my name is Roberta Beltrão, and I'm the teacher of the Diploma of Sustainable Operations at Envirotech Education. Now, many people ask me about sustainability and how it can be applied into business. The truth is, sustainability is all about a triple bottom line of environmental preservation, economical development, and social development. Most people think that sustainability is just about environment and protect plants and oceans and things like this. The truth is, we cannot reach that without understanding the other two parts, the social and economical. Every business has an impact on the environment. It can be large or can be small, but the impact is always there. We have the obligation to try to reduce this impact and do the best to preserve our planet. On the Diploma of Sustainable Operations, we teach people on a management level of how to integrate the information that is out there created by scientists that are producing a lot of material every day into their everyday activities. So what kind of technologies can be used to reduce the impact on the use of resources or even the production of waste? Sustainability, it's fundamental and is so much into demand. However, a person who is working in a restaurant or in a mid-sized business, they don't need to go through a university and study environmental science or a similar course to understand that. They can go through a VET course and actually understand how to link, how to put together the science with the operations. Yeah? So sustainable operations is all about that. Sustainability into the everyday operations of the business, understanding how the activities in each process produce an impact, and breaking it down to find solutions for that. Most people don't even think that you can reduce drastically your energy consumption just by understanding the process and finding more efficient process to reduce the waste. Waste on small things, energy, water, motion, transportation, for example. So when we can fix these small things, the cumulative impact can be drastically reduced. So that's what we want to teach on these vocational courses. So that way, people who are already working in any level in a business can understand and fix it. Mostly a diploma level is going to be someone like a manager, but sometimes we also need people to collect data, to be there on the floor of a factory and understand what activities are producing impact. And that we're going to be the position of a Cert 4 or Cert 3. That's why we have a demand for courses on sustainability on a VET level, to create this link between what is produced by the scientists in universities and what is needed in the everyday operations of a business. The link between them can be achieved by a shorter course like VET course. So that's why I strongly recommend courses like the Diploma of Sustainable Operations. Thank you very much and have a nice day.
That was so interesting, Roberta. And I don't know if I'm embarrassed to say something, but when I first came to Envirotech and I heard about the environmental management and sustainability, I really thought it was like about trees and, you know, the land. And it was really interesting when Roberta spoke to me and she explained the sustainability aspect, and it opened my eyes to how it's part of how a business is run. It's part of how a school is run. It's part of, like, if we buy a product to have in a takeaway shop, what do we do with the product when we open it, when we cook it, what happens to this, and then what happens if there's leftovers? It was just opened my eyes.
Absolutely. Sustainability is not always just applied in an environmental context, but it touches us in so many ways, and it can be very simple, from your own coffee cup rather than using a takeaway cup. There's so many examples, and Roberta touched on some of those. And it really just highlights the number of job opportunities for the graduates when they do finish in the certificate programs in all types of industries, not just in tourism with some of our partners like SeaWorld or Inlock or ports and other industries, but in education and hospitality, for example, farm to table concept as well. Sustainability threads through everything that we do as humans and how we interact with the planet. Before I forget, folks, we do have a live Q&A session in your browser there. So if you have any questions, please, we'll have a panel join us.
Yeah, I'm sure with things that Roberta's said and Cassie, and that there are definitely questions that you have, and we'd love to hear your questions. Not to interrupt the flow, we'll come to those at the end. But what I'd like to do now is to actually cross to Carmel Guy. Carmel has had 26 years experience in the vet sector. She's a very respected member of our team, and she helps us to look at compliance and compliance management. So without any further, let's cross to Carmel.
Hello everybody. Today I'm just going to provide you with an overview of how vet funding works in Australia and how training is provided by state and territory governments. So government funding of VET is a collaborative effort by the Commonwealth and state and territory governments, and they do have a national agreement in place where they negotiate how they're going to carry out those arrangements. This diagram here that I've provided gives you an overview of how the funding flows within the actual system in Australia. And as you can see at the top there, you've got the Australian government and the state and territory governments working together in partnership. On the left-hand side, particularly in that middle green box there, you can see this specific VET funding programs. And if you look over on the right-hand side here in the blue box that identifies registered training organisations, the funding flows to these organisations and they deliver the training programs. There's also other ways that VET is delivered in Australia, and as you can see in this blue box down the bottom here, there are other revenue streams that do provide funding, but predominantly it's government funded. So funding arrangements work in the way that state and territory governments allocate funding through their budgets and they administer the funding arrangements. They work out what training they're going to invest in based on the needs of their economies, what advice they've received from industry directly, and they are usually peak bodies and or employer groups. They've identified skill shortages in their particular states or territories and priority occupations in their jurisdictions. So they work out what particular qualifications or skill sets they're going to fund based on those needs. They then approve registered training organisations such as Envirotech Education to provide those training courses under the arrangements, and they form agreements with the RTOs, and then they're able to deliver those training courses in their particular locations or footprints. One of the main funding programs that are offered by all states and territories is related to student training entitlement. All states and territories have implemented this entitlement since 2015, which was based on a national agreement, and it provides all working age Australians with access to government subsidised courses with the intent that they're able to obtain at least a Certificate 3 level qualification with a training provider of their choice. And each state and territory is also able to go beyond that minimum entitlement. So for example, if I use Queensland as the scenario, they also fund Certificate 4 level qualifications, and they also provide subsidised places for certain Certificate 2 level qualifications, specifically for VET in schools programs. I've identified those 3 qualifications in marine conservation and sustainability as they are suitable to be delivered under the student training entitlement in each state. That just gives you an idea of what could be provided under these particular funding arrangements in the specific states or territories. Now, each state and territory has their own model, the way that they've implemented the entitlement model, and each funding program is called something different. So they're listed there, as you can see. In New South Wales, they have the Smart and Skilled program. Victoria has Skills First. Queensland has Certificate 3 Guarantee. South Australia has Work Ready. Western Australia has Jobs and Skills WA. In Tasmania, courses are embedded in all of their subsidised training programs. And while the Northern Territory no longer has the entitlement program as such, they do have other funding programs for specific target groups where these marine conservation and sustainability qualifications could be offered. And we nearly forgot the ACT, they have skilled capital. Now, in saying that, delivery of those qualifications are not limited to this particular entitlement model approach in each state and territory, because they all have additional initiatives, but you just have to be able to identify which one is available for the particular training course. And more often than not, it's required that industry support the delivery of the qualifications and that they are behind the application or the business case to have them funded. So apprenticeships and traineeships are funded as well by each state and territory. And the User Choice Program has been around since 1998, and it is a national funding policy. But each state and territory, again, have implemented their own arrangements for the delivery of training to apprentices and trainees. The funding seeks to reduce the cost of the training for employers. So when employers have to release their apprentices or trainees for their off-the-job training, and in some instances they can be trained on the job, this funding supports the registered training organisation to be able to deliver the training and assessment. The amount of funding available does differ in each state and territory. It just depends on how they've prioritised it, and particularly in regional and remote locations, the particular state or territory can apply loadings to those locations where there's a higher rate of funding subsidy available to the RTO to be able to deliver to apprentices and trainees in those particular locations, just because of the geographical challenges. I have identified that the Certificate 3 in Marine Habitat Conservation and Restoration is very much a suitable training product to be offered as a traineeship qualification. There is a process required in each state and territory to have particular qualifications declared as apprenticeships or traineeships in that particular state before it can be offered under that particular funding. Lastly, the Commonwealth Government has the VET Student Loan Scheme, and this current arrangement replaced the previous VET Fee Help Scheme, which ended in 2016. So VSL, as we refer to, commenced in 2017. It provides an income contingent loan to students who are eligible. They have to meet specific criteria, and it enables them to study diploma level and above VET qualifications. There is a loan cap, so they are able to borrow up to a certain amount depending on the particular qualification. And I have also identified there qualifications such as the Diploma of Sustainable Operations are approved as VET student loan courses, and they are available currently. Envirotech Education happens to be one of the RTOs who's able to offer that particular diploma. So where to from here? Industry, employers, if you are interested in being able to access either graduates of those particular qualifications mentioned, or you want to train or upskill your existing workforce, it's a matter of following the process that each state or territory has in relation to identifying these qualifications as being suitable to be funded, because they are priorities, and we can help facilitate that process. So please provide your expression of interest and let us know if you're willing to find out more information about how you can support the applications or the submissions to have these marine conservation and sustainability qualifications available as government funded training places. Thank you.
Well, a lot of information there, Simon.
A lot of information from Carmel. I think the thing that strikes me, Paula, is the very hands-on nature and the practical component of the program, and also the way that we develop it contextual to different industries, different geographies and different regions around our core subjects and then our specialisations. Can you tell us a bit more how you would envisage the funding structures and how they might be applicable specific to what we're talking about here today, environmental vet reform?
Yeah, well, I think what Carmel did was she really helped you to understand that the vet industry and the types of support that government gives in terms of funding for students. And so what we're really asking for with this environmental vet reform is that we need that these jobs, so environmental, marine, they are seen as critical priority occupations. And who could question that with what's happening in the world today? Like, seriously, they are just so critical for us to protect the rest of the world and to have, for example, a coral reef in the future. So we need you to support us on that, and we need the government to recognise it, because as soon as it's been recognised that it is critical, then we are eligible to start looking for funding. And that means that our students, whether they're domestic, international, high school, are then able to access these courses. On the 18th of December, I think it was, we submitted a huge application to the government, and we didn't submit it. We were very fortunate to have INLOC, in conjunction with Blue Planet, be a Queensland applicant supporting our courses and showing the value. Our gratitude to both these companies is beyond words. We're hoping that, well, we're not hoping, we know we're going to hear from the government. We're hoping to hear soon, because how many students are hanging out from what we saw this week?
Lots. And now your background's in education, isn't it? We've got a short clip of Paula coming out, which we've recorded just across the road here from our Bailey campus.
Yeah.
Tell us about your career.
So I've been teaching for 20 years. My main area was humanities. So it was really interesting to get involved with helping with these two courses merging into the high schools, because I wouldn't have thought prior to this that it was my area. But I'm actually becoming very, very passionate about it and very excited, and I'm learning so much. Do you know what anthropogenic is?
I do not.
Well, see, I do, because I've been reading the marine course.
Let's
cross.
Shall we go to the video?
Yeah,
let's see what Paula's got to say about environmental vet reform.
It was only 6 months ago that I was employed by Envirotech to assist them with high schools. As a teacher of 20 years, I have been preparing with a team of expert staff to enter the high schools with our marine course. Envirotech Education have really responded to the needs of today. They've written the first certificate course for marine habitats conservation and restoration. This exciting course has gone viral. The schools are so excited. The nation is excited. Internationally, people are exciting. There are some people who don't quite understand why it's so exciting that we have the first vet marine course in the entire world. It's exciting because there are people who don't want to go to university and want to work in vet but can't get a qualification. There are people who want to fast track their learning. So these courses, some of them can be completed in 6 months, some in 12. So that means that they can get in, they can study, they get it done quickly, and then they're out in the industry. Vet is also hands-on. So instead of just learning the theory behind the marine and how to restore and how to conserve, they're actually out there doing it. They're actually out there practicing. And that's why vet, it's such an amazing field for hands-on work. And conservation and restoration is hands-on. It's not just in a book. The marine course has been something that students have been craving for such a long time, something that is so different to what they're presently doing. What we've found through speaking to the students is that there are many who are disengaged with school. They're a bit sick of the norm and they really want to get out to nature. They really want to do something to save the world. So when we approached them about these marine courses, they were like, wow, this is exactly what I want to do. 50% prac. Oh, we get to go to the beach. We get to go scuba diving, snorkeling, using quadrants, doing practical hands-on research and investigation to be able to make a difference in the world, not just for the sake of doing it, not for the sake of completing a subject. It really does make a difference. This is what the students have been so excited about. Not only the students, their parents, the staff, the teachers, the schools. It's something that is really tapping into a need. And then when the parents heard They were so excited themselves. They wished that they'd had a course like that. And in addition to that, they were excited because their kids were excited and their kids wanted to do something. You know, when I'm walking down the street and someone sees my logo, Envirotech Education, quite often they go, oh, what do you do, you know? And I start mentioning about the marine course. I cannot believe that just even the average person on the street gets so excited and they don't just say to me, oh, okay. They start asking me questions and they want to know the ins and outs in relation to this course. And they're all like, oh, it's about time and we really need this and how amazing is it and isn't it fantastic? And then I tell them about the influence that we're having overseas, that it's not just happening here in Australia and it's going beyond. And then that excites them even more and engages them even more. We presently have in Queensland aquatic practices and marine science, which is taught in some schools. However, because of the knowledge that is required, there aren't many schools who are able to teach it. Additionally, through doing this course at school, the students get no qualification. It just contributes to their Year 12 certificate. However, by studying our course, not only do they get experts in the field, not only do they get the practical hands-on, they also get a certificate qualification. So they can actually leave school with a qualification that allows them to go immediately into the workforce. Presently, if students want to do something to do with marine, they have to go to university. Not all students want to go to university, and we don't always have to have a university qualification to be able to be engaged in the world of employment with marine. Certainly, I've had students who have approached me who are interested in going to university and doing marine biology. And what they're excited about is that in preparation for that university course, while they're at school, they're doing a subject they love, they're getting a qualification before they even start university, which means by the time they get to university, they have this amazing understanding as well as the phenomenal practical experience background. In terms of our Indigenous, we know that they live on the sea. We know that is their home. Many of our Indigenous students are disengaged with school. They don't want to be at school. They want to be on the beach. They want to be cleaning up the fishing line that was left behind by the fishermen. They want to be restoring something that has been damaged because they're so protective of the sea. By having this course, and I know this for a fact because we've been in contact with so many Indigenous communities, by having this course, what the hope is of the elders of the community is that their students, their children, will actually finish school. There's such a large percentage who don't finish school. And we know that today you do need, and it does help you to have that Year 12 certification. So their hope is that the fact that the students will be studying something that they are passionate about, they will therefore attend school. They will therefore complete school. Not only will they get their Year 12 certification, they will leave with a qualification in marine, which allows them to go immediately into the workforce. Whenever we speak to industry, this is what we've been waiting for. What can we do? How can we help you? We want this course to happen. What support can we give you? And then the industry engagement means that we're starting to also create jobs for the students for when they finish. We're able to get work placement for them because it's this whole network that's coming together. It's not Envirotech Education. It's Envirotech Education being the springboard, which is now bringing in schools and communities and overseas and workforce. It's just amazing. You know, our staff are just so excited. Every day is exciting because it's so new. I'm outdoors here. I'm videoing outdoors because we've been doing so many videos outdoors for the students. When we teach them about rocky shores, because a lot of our teaching is going to be, because of COVID, we have to convert to online. So even though we'll have practical, we're going to have, the students are going to log in and have a lot of online theory, but they're not going to be listening to our trainers sitting in a classroom. Our trainers, they went down to the rocky shores here and they pointed out the aspects that they had to teach. They went to the sand dunes and taught a lesson from the sand dunes. They went to the seagrass and taught a lesson from the seagrass. So we are getting into nature, and by showing that natural aspect, the students are more enticed, they're more engaged because they're actually, in a cyber way, they're getting connected to the environment. And then that excites them because when it gets to their practical aspects, they know that they're going to be going there, there and there. So it's just exciting for everyone. And I know I keep saying exciting and you're probably sick of me saying it, but it is. It really is. And this is why we need the government to fund these courses. They're not cheap courses to run, and not every person is able to afford a course. So by funding these courses, not only are you helping the students, not only are you helping Indigenous people, not only are you helping them to be able to do something that they love, you're helping our workforce. You're helping Australia. You're helping the world. We know that the environment is in danger. We know that there are things that we need to do to conserve and restore and ensure that we have a beautiful world for the future, a beautiful earth. And so by training more people, it helps them to be aware. Even those who don't go into the employment field, they're more aware. Therefore, they're thinking about their actions. They're caring more. And then those who are qualified and want to go into the workforce, they're able to go and help us on a volunteer basis and or in a job capacity because they have the skills to know what to do. They know how to go and do, coral planting. They know how to go investigate the rocky shores to see if they're in a healthy state. This is not just about asking them to fund a course. It's about asking them to fund something that is our future, that is going to help people around the world. This course is actually going to create jobs. There are so many jobs out there that need to be created in order to help with our habitats. And by having people who are qualified, we're actually going to be able to develop those jobs because we're going to have people who are going to be able to go out and help with the habitats. And that's why government, we need you to recognise this and we need you to come on board with all of us who are connecting. We need you there too, and we need your financial support. Okay, so I was just saying to Simon,
I'm excited. After your video, Paul, how could I not be excited?
Oh, well, I'm excited because have you seen the number of questions that are coming in? They're amazing.
Just keep them coming in,
yes.
And we will answer them the best we can. We will even address a few of them at the end of the session today in a short Q&A. Cassandra, our colleague in Cooktown, is already addressing some of the questions, I think, online.
So thanks, Cassie. That's amazing. We're moving now into another amazing member of our team. Would you like to tell us about?
We have up next Professor Nadav Shahar, a very privileged guest here today. He has vast experience in the marine industry, and he's going to be talking about the blue economy. And from my perspective, sustainability, we've talked a lot about education, we've talked a lot about the environment, but at a holistic level, sustainability also is about the economic part of the equation and also the community and stakeholder and social aspects, and we'll come to that later. But first,
now, just to be a bit silly, not silly, maybe I show my ignorance, but some other people may feel the same way as me. When you say blue planet,
blue economy,
what are you talking about?
So I'm talking about, say, for example, in Queensland, particularly at the moment, the tourist industry is going through a recalibration. We've seen a decline in international tourists who would typically come and go diving on the reef, be a part of the outdoor economy in Queensland. And it's about the money that's generated around jobs and employment, around the elements within the ocean, or the blue economy.
Oh, so does blue refer to ocean?
Absolutely.
Ah,
so
great.
We're going to hear, so also you might hear the term triple bottom line being, again, the social, the economic and the environmental.
Roberta spoke about that.
She did.
Yeah.
So Professor Nadav is going to tell us all about blue economy and how that helps us in not only the education sector, the environment, but also in our communities as well.
Great. Let's cross to Nadav's video.
Hello, my name is Nadav Shashar, and I'm a professor of marine biology at Ben-Gurion University of the Negev. Here I serve as the head of the Ben-Gurion University Marine Biology and Biotechnology program over in Eilat, in the south of Israel. My line of research is actually, on one hand, I build coral reefs, but on the other hand, I also design and build water marine, dual-use marine structures. Some of you might have known, or might have already seen, the Sydney Harbour seawall. This is a case where the seawall within the harbour, which serves for boats and for people for pleasure and so on, has been modified in a way that it also increases and enhances marine biodiversity. So we are a dual use. I also do that, or my line of research does that, on a very wide range of structure, which we will not go into that over here, but I invite you to come to Israel and see that. I also head the Eilat Conservation Society. The Eilat Conservation Society is an organization, and we've been recently commissioned by the municipality of Eilat to restore the coral reef in Eilat over an area of approximately 6 square kilometers. This is quite a large area. And the coral reef was damaged by a severe storm that we had, and now we are up to restoring it. We will be looking for professionals that know how to work underwater and how to do coral restoration. Now, what do I mean by professionals? Professionals are people that actually know how to do the job, have been trained to it, have a very good experience, and don't keep on developing things on the way who are not required to do it, but they are really good at what they are doing. Now, I'm very good at what I'm doing, but maybe I'm not good enough, and I was not trained as such. There is a need for people, for professionals that actually do mediation and limitation of the damage that we humans are doing to the sea, and finding ways and solutions and establishing them in a way of restoring and conserving the coastal environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Nadav. I think one of the things that amazes me, Paul, is just that connectivity between industry and innovation. And it isn't always about the reefs and the tourism. There's so many different applications, whether it's with Abu Dhabi ports, with the integration between industrial and ecology. We're working with some of our partners at SeaWorld as well, and the community engagement part is absolutely fantastic.
And I have to say that sorry to interrupt, I have to say that what really excites me is that I'm working with people around the world. So Nadav.
Yes.
Nadav's from Israel. We had Shelley, who's over in Abu Dhabi at the moment.
Paul is here at Burleigh Heads, I'm in Byron Bay, Cassandra's in Cooktown. So we're very flexible and highly mobile with the way that we deliver the platform, both using online technology and with the Moodle, and the content gets included in the curriculum through both practical component and those online activities as well.
Yeah.
Who have we got next?
Next we have Peter Stokes. Peter is from Inlock, and I think you heard me say before that Inlock were the Queensland applicant for our courses. So once again, I can't thank him enough for that, and I can't thank Inlock enough. Peter, we actually were privileged to meet. He actually resides in Vanuatu. He resides in Vanuatu, and he was actually in Australia visiting his family. So he came down to visit us, and we got to know him, and it was really amazing to hear about his experiences. We then, when we were in Cairns last week, we also actually went to visit the hub in Cairns, and we got to meet with David and talk further about what Inlock does. I won't go into detail because Peter's going to tell us. It's amazing though. Let's cross to Peter.
See what Peter's got to say.
Hi, my name's Peter Stokes and I work with a company called Inlock in Cairns, North Queensland. Inlock have been operating for 10 years now and we've grown from 2 to 70 staff. Inlock is an abbreviation for in location, which means we work on site in location out there where most other people won't go or can't go. These are remote, isolated, harsh and sometimes hazardous areas of Northern Australia, Papua New Guinea and the wider Pacific. Our work can be simplified as caring for country and community. We conduct operations ourselves or provide training and development to achieve the goals that are set for us. These goals have been proven to be very broad over the years. There is clearly a lot of support needed for those beautiful but less accessible parts of our region. We manage and conserve land and sea resources, and we provide the support that is needed in these remote locations. And these can be Indigenous communities or groups that are associated with work that we're conducting. These can be agriculturalists, tourism operations, scientists and academics, and so on. So we provide the training and conduct operations in a range of terrestrial and marine habitat care and restoration. We also assist developing communities in improving their water and food security, their health and hygiene, their leadership and governance, and also their micro-business skills. In North Queensland, like much of the rest of the planet, the marine environment has been under increasing stress due to the compounding impact of climate change, of pollution, extractive resources, invasive species, and also particularly evident in the developing world, overfishing and plastic inundation. There are many people and communities connected to sea country that are actually working very hard to preserve the vulnerable marine environment. And this environment is very important to us. It's important because of its marine diversity and conservation value. It's important because of its economic benefits that flow through tourism, fisheries and aquaculture. It's important because of its source of cultural belief and identity of Indigenous First Australians. And it's important for its jobs and also the livelihoods that depend on it. INLOC is helping these critical but vulnerable marine ecosystems. For example, we implement the crown of thorn starfish program that controls this destructive species. We implement coral reef restoration projects. We train Indigenous rangers. We train marine workers in the tourism industry so those industries can be more compatible and sustainable with the environment. We deliver leadership courses to Indigenous communities so that they can better care for their sea country. Conservation and economic goals need to be brought in balance, which will result in a sustainable future. Strengthening and harmonising the linkages between reef restoration, economic development and Indigenous landowner interests are vital for the long-term sustainability of the reef and will give us a much better chance of achieving this. Envirotech and INLOC share very similar goals in progressing marine habitat preservation, economic development and Indigenous empowers. Our capabilities are compatible. It's important that organisations like Envirotech and INLOC work together and need to work together to develop a wide range of job opportunities for you and also for the emerging marine workforce. Thank you. This is an exciting and rapidly growing sector that you're involved with. We hope to see you out there soon and good luck with your studies.
Peter came to the campus, as I mentioned before, and he spent a bit of time talking to our domestic and international students. He was really blown away, like the vast backgrounds that they had, from, you know, some people being vets to marine biologists to, I don't know, previous qualifications where they'd had jobs and now they were looking for a change. And he was really inspirational. In actual fact, they bailed him up at the end, as they do, because they're always looking, how can we volunteer? How can we get out there? And we have a really interesting story to share next.
Excellent, thanks Paula. So Study Queensland, our vet student of the year, she is so passionate and she came from an industry that was hit very hard by COVID in that sector, and her story is a wonderful one of her resilience and her reskilling in an area that she's so enthusiastic about. Her
So
name
passionate.
is Susie James, and we're going to hear from Susie now.
Yeah, let's hear from Susie.
Hi, my name is Susie and I'm taking the Marine Habitat Conservation Restoration course, Cert 3. The way that I came about it is, well, for the past 25 years I've been working as an international flight attendant, and when COVID hit at the beginning of 2020, basically our industry just shut down practically, and so most of us were stood down. And with that sort of feeling, I was sitting at home one day thinking, what am I going to do? What's next? What now? And I just thought, it put me into a situation where it really made me think about what I want to do. So, well, I want to be by the ocean and I want to do something with marine conservation. So that same evening, I just Googled, I don't know what I Googled, something about marine conservation, and one of the first things that came up was Envirotech education. The next morning, I rang the Envirotech and I spoke with beautiful Daria, who was just amazing. We had an amazing conversation, and 3 weeks later, I started the course. And so that's how my journey began with marine conservation. And I realized that too, if we follow our hearts and do what we love, then everything else falls into place. There's many benefits in doing this course, and obviously one of them is meeting like-minded people and making new friends. Also getting to know professionals in the industry, so that with networking, so that in the future when we finish our course, we will have greater employment opportunities within the field. Also, one of the benefits is really participating hands-on. So it's a very hands-on course. It's 50-50 theory and hands-on. So we learn things like monitoring the different marine habitats. Scuba diving is also part of the course, which is fantastic. We also learn about different opportunities that are available out of class. For example, coral restoration projects up in the Whitsundays and things like that that we can get involved in. They're not part of the course, but they're things that we find out about and that we can get involved in. Millions of people around the world use the oceans for sustainable living for themselves. It includes fishing and tourism and things like that, where if they're not done sustainably, then they create a lot of pressure on the marine habitats. So it's important to educate communities as well as students, so that then we, as students, once we finish our course, we can go out there and also spread the word and educate communities about fishing and tourism and the ways that they can be done sustainably. So our students come from many walks of life. Some are straight out of school, others have had different careers, and so we all come to Envirotech with many different skills, but we all come with a joint goal of learning about how to preserve the marine environment. And so we can then put together our own personal skills, whether they be music or art or education, together with our learnings from marine conservation, and come up with either our own plans or be able to incorporate those into some existing fields as well. So we have students, all of us are very passionate about the environment, about the ocean, and that's why we're doing this course. So, but I also know we have many different skills, so it's great to combine those skills together. Well, it's important to study marine conservation because everything that we do on land affects the marine habitats. And so we need to have a greater awareness of what we do on land in order to prevent any further destruction to our marine habitats. And it's also very important to then put pressure on our federal and state governments to make a difference, because although that each one of us can make a difference all together, but we really do need the support of governments. Make changes to make big corporations responsible for their pollution levels so that we can really make a change. As we've seen with COVID-19, governments around the world, and particularly in Australia, have been able to mobilise medical and financial assistance to many communities, which has been a saving grace for all of us. And we've never really understood that governments can actually do so much when they really want to. So with that in mind, we've now realised that, yes, we can put pressure on our governments, and hopefully that, you know, they can move as quickly for this climate change pandemic that we're experiencing, not only in Australia, but globally. And also we need to include our marine conservation skills into the Australia skills list so that we can get more funding for this course and other courses like it, and for the environment as a whole. So we need more people to study this course in order to create greater awareness and greater empowerment for people to be able to put more pressure on the government to provide funding for these vet courses for marine conservation and restoration.
Very inspirational student. And I know we've only had Susie up there, but, you know, I really have to emphasise that we have so many, well, actually all our students are amazing and they have amazing stories to tell. Actually, it might be a good idea, one of our webinars in the future, to hear from our students, because they come from such vast backgrounds.
Absolutely. And we, at the moment, Abu Dhabi is somewhere very dear to my heart. It's somewhere where I spent 10 years living and working in that part of the world. It's a very exciting and dynamic place where things happen very quickly, particularly in the innovation sector. And up next, we are going to hear from our friends at Abu Dhabi Ports, from David Gatwood and from Amy.
Great, let's hear.
As Abu Dhabi Ports, we take our environmental responsibilities very seriously. And as engineers, we ensure from the very first minute, we engineer in environmental solutions.
تعتبر الاستدامة أحد أهم ركائز موانئ أبو ظبي، ومنذ إنشاء ميناء خليفة تم مراعاة استدامة البيئة البحرية من خلال التنسيق مع الجهات المحلية كهيئة البيئة أبو ظبي.
It's a really unique project and the first of its kind in this region, and the history is related to the Khalifa Port Etihad Rail project. So as part of the environmental permitting process, we were required to do some coral relocation works in Khalifa Port. So we had to relocate some of the coral from the northern revetment to the eastern breakwater, and that is right next to the Ras Granada Reef, which is one of the most largest coral reef systems within the Gulf.
Corals are fragile and sensitive organisms, and proper relocation methodology is key to the success of any relocation project. This project has given us the opportunity to better understand methodologies and the effects of relocation on species.
And to turn this process not only into an environmental mitigation exercise, but rather into a research exercise where we can learn from the techniques that we're using to inform future projects that are being done here in the Arabian Gulf as well as elsewhere in the world.
So what was the approach we took to actually relocate the coral? First of all, we went through a rigorous procurement process where we made sure we engaged a team of leading experts with experience of similar projects in this region. We made sure that the team were trained in the methods to relocate the coral, and they were trained in how to undertake the ongoing monitoring, which is going to happen over a 3-year period.
Safeguarding corals using the mitigation methods that we've employed on this project, such as relocation, is critical to maintain the species diversity of corals within the region.
We are very proud to be looking after such an amazing initiative as the coral relocation, not just for today, but for the future.
Very interesting.
Yep,
fascinating, actually.
They're amazing. They are at the leading edge. And we are setting up, as Shelley mentioned, we signed an MOU with Abu Dhabi Ports on the 22nd of February, only a few weeks back, and we are setting up a pilot program in that part of the world with our colleagues in the education sector as well as Abu Dhabi ports.
Which is exciting for them and exciting for us. But what I also find exciting about that connection and the Philippines and Israel and everywhere else is that it's going to connect, like the people in Australia who are doing these studies, they're going to be connected as well, and the people overseas will be connected with us, and it's just going to, it's going to be amazing.
So we have another message from Shelley now to sum up, and she is going to explain some of the things that you can help us to take this forward in terms of our engagement with industry.
And they were a lot of the questions that we got, which is really exciting. How can we help? So we're really grateful that you've been asking that, and you're obviously enthused. I'd just like to add that Shelley's daughter, Kesem, beautiful, intelligent young lady, very involved in educating the world, very passionate about saving our planet. So I believe she's joining Shelley as well.
Let's hear what they have to say.
Yeah.
I wish to thank Kesem, my daughter, who joined us. Kesem and I wish to thank all of you who took part in this webinar, the amazing speakers, and you who are attending it. We are all here because we care about the well-being of our natural environments, and we wish to lead a positive change. We are leading this reform and leading a change towards healthier environments and societies.
It's a rare opportunity to have the ability to positively shape our society, and even rarer to shape our environment as well. I believe with all my heart that we can do this. If we come together, community, industry, and education alike, together we will have the power to lead this international reform and to shape a brighter future for my generation and generations to come.
The next steps is to declare that environmental management, sustainability, land and marine conservation restorations are critical priority occupations, meaning that the training and accreditation of these occupations will be funded, as well as providing financial support for employers. We need as many support letters as we can from communities, industries, and from schoolings and educators who will benefit from a large number of vocational marine and land conservators and restorators, environmental management and sustainability graduates, and offer professional work placements opportunities for vocational students. We would like to finish this webinar with what drove us to begin this reform, our youth.
Thank you very much, and we applaud you for your support in this incredible reform. More than 80% of Australians live within the coastal zone. When people look at the ocean, they see a big blue carpet of water. They want white, clean, sandy beaches without plants or rocks, so it'll look good and be comfortable. They grew up learning to take from the sea, without even being aware of the damage they cause. But under the surface, there's a magnificent world. A world full of wonder that is rich, colorful, full of life. A world that is fading away right under our noses. And the sad thing, most people don't even know it. Generation after generation, kids grow up without any awareness of the importance of the preservation of marine habitats. They do not realize that mangroves, sand dunes, and rocky shores are vital for the survival of so many animals and preventing the erosion that'll take their houses from the sea. Species are extinct. The corals are dying. There are less fish, less oxygen. The sea is warming and rising. It'll flood the coastal cities if we do not change our ways quickly. The question isn't if it'll happen, it's how fast it'll happen. This is already happening in our backyards. The sea is the most important resource for humanity and is dying. It is our responsibility to make a change, to conserve and restore this amazing habitat. Let's educate our youth in our schools on how to protect and preserve our various marine habitats. Let's raise a new generation with awareness. Let's create jobs that make a difference. Let's fund the Marine course so that it is accessible for our future generation who want and are willing to be change makers for this critical job. Your decision today will shape the future of Australia and the world.
Isn't she amazing?
She is.
You know, that is just one video that she has made. She has made so many videos promoting the care of our land, and it's really enlightening to see someone so young doing that. You might have noticed that a third person has popped up on our screen. I'd like to introduce you to Maria. Maria is our lead marine trainer. She has a PhD in
marine science.
So would you like to tell us a little bit about the course, seeing as though you've been developing?
Hey Maria, how are you?
Very good, thanks. Simon, thanks for having me here. I'm glad to share a little bit of what I know from our students. So we have the Certificate 2 and 3 in Marine Habitat Conservation and Restoration. We are happy to have such a vast group of students with different background and from different countries as well. And I would like to start with thanking a special thank you to our partners SeaWorld, Watergum Seagrass, Ocean Connect, and Jacobs Well Environmental Education Center. So you see that we take our students to different sites here on the Gold Coast, and it couldn't be easy without the help of our partners.
I believe they've been not only very supportive, but they've been very excited about what's going on.
100%. So yes, we can go even further. We have a site where we monitor constantly with our students. So we are kind of like taking over the Wave Break Island to monitor the coverage of seagrass and how it is going with time, if it's improving the efforts that the council is putting in place with Watergum seagrass people.
So amazing. So we're not just going out and here's a practical activity, it's real life stuff and actually making a change with conservation restoration.
Absolutely. So I just wanted to touch on perhaps how the folks can help us today. And one of the things is you will see in your email some survey forms, your business metrics in terms of your size and the nature of your business help us to inform how we structure the programs to meet your needs. It's highly customizable. We have core subjects and then different specializations.
And it also, Simon, lets the government know that there are these, you know, as we said, the positions are evolving. So it's really great for you to be able to have insight into what that is.
And they inform the critical priority occupations list. And there's some other elements that we'd like as well.
Yeah, so what that actually marries in really well with the fact that how much excitement have we had over the course?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And what are people asking for now, Maria?
Volunteer work, paid work, opportunities to really get involved with projects.
And I know there's a lot of students who are like, what happens when I finish the Cert 3?
Yeah.
So what is it that we're going to do?
Yeah, so we are going to collaborate with these organizations and have these opportunities for the students to have the work placement.
Amazing. Yeah. And the other thing that we have done is we've had to write this, well, not had to, we're happy to write the Cert 4 and the diploma because people want to keep progressing, which is very exciting. And so one of the forms that we've actually given you is about the units that we have proposed for the Cert 4 and for the diploma. We actually, Simon and I presented to LMAC in Cooktown. I think we mentioned that earlier. And so they were our first group of industry people who actually responded. And it was really enlightening. They were very engaged in saying, have you got this and have you got that? And some of the things, we had and we were able to expand. But they had some amazing ideas and we were so grateful for their feedback. So that's what we want from you. We want some feedback.
And also the support letter. So we visited Cairns State High and Mosman State High. Hello guys,
Hello.
For listening today. And they couldn't put together a support letter quick enough for us. We provided the template. It's very easy. And that helps us put together our application to apply for the funding.
Exactly. So without any further ado, I think we should cross now to our forum.
Absolutely. Do we want to address some questions? What do we have? We've got a lot of questions coming in this afternoon.
So many
and I think
questions.
Shelley and Cassandra have been addressing them.
They have been very busy. I did notice that someone asked, and I sort of got excited. I thought maybe they want to come and work with us. How do they become a trainer? and they knew that they had to have a certificate for in training and assessment, but they wanted to know what else they had to have. And so basically, just to very briefly, you obviously need to have qualifications in relation to marine science, which might be at a vet level or higher.
Or land management or sustainability.
Yes, if we're looking at the environmental, absolutely. And industry experience. Industry experience is also very important because, as we mentioned, it's a hands-on course. But if you're interested, you know, we've got lots of people contacting us and upskilling themselves so that they can become trainers, and we welcome you to our company. It's exciting. Okay, what else did we have here? What about the Gold Coast and Byron Bay? So I'm presuming you're asking whether the people can study there. In terms of our course, we have two campuses two campuses. I wanted to say on the Gold Coast, but one's in New South Wales, so I was a bit thrown. Sorry.
So we have in Byron we have 3 classrooms, and we have a beautiful campus down at Belongil Beach, and we are all set up there to take students into the program. We offer a range of other opportunities in vet as well.
Yeah, and because of COVID, I think Maria has students who are in her class who participate on a weekly basis, but then we also have people who log in online. So, and of course the high school students, as I mentioned in the earlier video, they log in online, and then we get together with them for the practical activities. Okay, any more questions? Reform, what does reform mean? So by reform, we're talking about environmental vet reform. We're talking about the fact that we want the government and we want industries to recognise that these are critical
priority occupations.
Yeah. And if we know that they're critical, then we can have a vet reform, because an environmental vet reform, because at the moment these occupations are not seen, well, they're not on the critical list. I think they're definitely seen as critical, but they just haven't acknowledged it in terms of vet documentation. So that's what we're pushing for, and that's why we're asking you to fill out all those forms that we've been talking about. Okay. Oh. The Cert 3, how long does it take? Okay, so for example, the Cert 3, if you were to study it as a domestic or international student, it would take you 12 months.
12 and 18 months.
Yeah, so 12 months, maybe a bit longer if you end up engaging with industry. In terms of our schools, we have the Cert 2, which runs for 12 months, and actually it runs for 8 to 12. It depends on the program at the school and how much you can fast track it. In terms of the Cert 3, we're looking at 18 months to 2 years. Once again, depending on the program and the timetable of the schools. I don't know. I think most of the other ones have been answered.
Folks, if you have any other questions, please feel free to email us or reach out and contact us. We'd be more than happy to speak to you individually. We've already started some conversations with some of you, particularly in the high schools, and that's helping us to craft our work so that we can tailor it to your needs, very much around being in the location, in the schools, and it's different courses for different needs and priorities in different schools as well. So we're very receptive to that, and we'd love to hear from you. And
yeah, hop on our webpage for more details. Email us at info@envirotech.education.edu.au. And I really enjoyed hosting the webinar today, and especially my co-host Simon. It was really a pleasure to.
Thank you, Paula.
Yeah.
And it was a pleasure as well.
And thank you to all our team who helped us to get this webinar together, and most importantly, thank you to you. It's really great to know that we're actually not just speaking to a blank screen.
Thanks for joining, folks.
Have a lovely night.
Thank you.